I feel like she's Jesus.
A cult of personality forms when a leader is glorified beyond reason.
All three Kims were and are absolute dictators and worshipped in a personality cult perhaps more extreme than any other in history.
Their image shaping followers' beliefs.
You can't be responsible for a dog if it doesn't obey you.
Often eclipsing truth or reality.
I see myself as superior to females, and not in a negative way.
Like, I'm not saying you can't train any girl, but I'm saying some blueprints are better than others.
Leaving a society mesmerized by one powerful figure.
If you want to come within 50 miles of me, you better be ready for the deepest end of the pool.
I'm afraid, actually.
And now with social media, these personality cults form faster than ever.
You would have to convince me otherwise that Teal's teachings did not play a significant role in the mind of our daughter.
Spreading influence in just minutes or hours.
Some of the most joyous days of your life become some of the most challenged days.
My name is Florio. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. So if you are here watching this for the first time, I do have a part 1 to this. This is my series on the different types of cults. So for now, let's jump into this one. Cult of personality. Cult personality is what first I wanted to do a video on, because I didn't really realize that this is like a type of cult, and it's very evident and prominent in social media and influencers and creators and things like that. Wellness coaches too, especially the wellness area. So this is what I originally was going to do a video on. Then when I started researching this, and I realized there is a bunch more like cult subclassifications. So then that's why I was like, okay, well, let's build this whole thing out. So I found this fascinating, and there's a few areas, like a few cult areas where I'm going to do some side tangents. And this one I do want to talk about sort of the influencer culture and content creators and parasocial relationships, because I think this is the big one that really is happening the most on social media. And a lot of it is happening like unknowingly to the person, like the idol or whatever, influencer, creator, whatever, don't realize it's really happening. And the people, our followers and people that, you know, we watch and consume this content, we don't realize that we've been falling into this. And it's very interesting because it's like it's human nature. We just fall into this way of thinking and acting so easily. So I found this fascinating, and that's what originally started me off on wanting to make this. But I thought it would be disingenuous for me to only talk about this and not discuss the other types of cults. So that's why we're going to talk about all of them. And that's why this video is going to be so long. Okay, so a cult of personality forms when the ideology fuels into a human symbol, when one individual becomes the embodiment of truth, morality, mission, and meaning.
Father Simmons is the holiest of holies. Father Simmons is the one true mouthpiece of the 7 gods. Father Simmons is the purest kind of soul on the planet.
And when they hit that point, criticism stops being disagreement. It becomes heresy. So let's talk about the ideology of these first. The good idea behind personality movements. So the core of personality-driven movements is something very human, the desire for guidance.
The allure of being part of something bigger than yourself, where you're accepted without question and given a sense of identity, is undeniable. This sense of belonging becomes so strong that it often overrides any critical thinking or caution.
When the world feels unstable, confusing, or overwhelming, people naturally look for someone who seems steady, someone who speaks clearly, someone who's making sense of all the chaos and appears to know where things are going. A charismatic figure emerges during uncertainty. They bring an aspect of hope to the people. This leader becomes a psychological anchor, and the early framing is often a positive one. Healthy systems, leaders play a role, but they don't become the system. They are accountable. They can be challenged. They can be replaced. And most importantly, the ideas they represent exist independently of them. They don't have to be there for their ideas to work and take hold. The danger begins when the separation of this erodes. When that person's voice is treated as truth, when their judgment becomes moral authority, when belonging to the movement starts to mean loyalty to the person, At that point, the ideology fades and the human symbol takes center stage. The movement becomes organized around preserving the person, and criticism stops being part of the process. It starts to feel like you're betraying the person if you criticize or question them. So how does this ideology shift into control that is required to become a cult? Personality cults rely less on rules and more on a mythos of the person. So we got a list again. Number 1, myth making. In these situations, the leader becomes larger than life. They have heroic backstories, exaggerated achievements, persecution narratives, like they might be, acting as a sort of martyr for the cause. The person stops being just like a general everyday human. They instead rise up to this sort of symbolic figure.
After Lenin's death, Stalin moved rapidly to position himself as successor. This came in 2 prongs. 1, elevating Lenin to near sainthood, and 2, tying himself to Lenin. That's why to this day, Lenin's embalmed and shrinking corpse inhabits a mausoleum in Red Square rather than being buried as he and his family wanted. Stalin needed Lenin as a symbol of the revolution to tie himself to.
Number 2, symbolism and omnipresence. Classic personality cults use posters, statues, media, slogans, ritualistic praise. These are some of the things they use to sort of reinforce the message. And that's historically the classic ones. But more modern versions, they use content, constant content, visual branding, viral moments, and still praise and blind following as well, even just through their phone. The symbol becomes unavoidable. And that's number 3. Narrative control. And now with this, reality begins to be filtered through the leader's story. As pretty much with all these cults, you see repetition. Criticism becomes being attacked. Contradictions are misunderstandings. Information no longer stands on its own. It's judged by whether it protects the figure or hurts the figure in some way. And number 4, we have loyalty tests. Support becomes a performance for the leader. Public defense, signaling allegiance, distancing from critics. Disagreement stops being intellectual. Instead, it becomes like a moral thing. Right, number 5, audience enforcement. This is where control no longer comes from the leader alone. It'll come from all the followers. Followers themselves they'll correct dissent, they'll shame critics, they'll protect the figure's image at all costs. So the entire structure and the whole group, it becomes self-policing. So it's very hands-off for the leader when they get to this point. So what are the consequences of all this? So admiration is normal. The danger starts when admiration turns into protection and protection into distorting reality. And that leads to the final shift. The movement stops serving the people and serves the person themselves. Let's talk some case studies here. Big one, North Korea.
This is Kim Jong-un, ruler of North Korea. He's just 36 years old, but he commands the world's 4th largest military. He has nuclear weapons, and his family has ruled over their people using violence and terror for over 70 years.
North Korea is one of the clearest modern examples of a state-scale cult of personality where their national identity and loyalty to leadership are tightly fused. And they aren't really using social media. They're using like old school methods to all this. Leaders are presented not just as officials, but as symbolic protectors and moral authorities. This makes devotion to the leader inseparable from devotion to the nation. It ties it all together.
North Korea is roughly the size of Mississippi. It has 25 million people, a showcase capital, Pyongyang, but vast poverty most everywhere else. All 3 Kims were and are absolute dictators and worshipped in a personality cult perhaps more extreme than any other in history.
Not only do you have a population that has largely bought into the myth that this family is keeping them safe against the Americans who would overrun their territory, but that the myth all comes out of the founding myth of Kim Il-sung, and that everybody else's authority comes from the fact that they descend from him.
So what's the setup in North Korea? Foundation for this personality structure developed over decades through a combination of revolutionary history, national trauma, and state building. Leadership was framed as essential during this time.
In 1910, Korea was colonized by Japan. The brutal occupation ended more than 1,000 years of Korea's reign as a sovereign nation. Japan lost Korea in World War II, and the country was split between the American-backed South and the Soviet-backed Communist North, led by a young rebel named Kim Il-sung. In 1953, after 3 years of fighting, Korea remained divided in almost exactly the same place as it had been before the war began, the 38th parallel. There never was a peace treaty, rather a perpetual state of ceasefire. Over time, the Kims isolated the country from much of the world, even cutting off foreign aid and communications with the neighbors to the south for long periods of time. North Korea has one of the largest militaries in the world. Parades like this boast awesome power to its people and an ominous message to its enemies. And the North Korean people believe they are still at war with America, though fighting ended in 1953.
I think they've come to the conclusion that they have a much greater chance of survival by being a threatening power than being a cooperative one.
Over time, the figure of the leader became embedded as a stabilizing force and a national guide. This framing positioned leadership not just as political power, but as a source of meaning, protection, and continuity across generations. So what are some of the techniques that they use? So in this particular situation, personality reinforcement occurs through multiple overlapping mechanisms. You'll see things like imagery and symbolism in public spaces.
Images of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il everywhere. Pyongyang was and still is a city of the relatively privileged. The government rewards strong supporters by letting them live there.
Ritualized displays of loyalty and respect, huge mythos, with North Korea especially, and narratives about the leaders' achievements, their sacrifices. They also do integration into national history and education, like it's taught in school.
I'd never experienced a kind of roboticism like I experienced in North Korea. And it was really difficult to tell whether people really felt as passionately about their dear leader or they felt compelled to act like they did. Everyone is trained from birth to love the leaders, and virtually no outside sources of information are allowed.
Hero worship is passed down generationally, so they all think that this is normal. They don't know what the outside world looks at. They don't understand that there's something wrong here.
Our minders led us to the home of a blind patient. Since I was told I was the only American in the country, I felt lucky, but a bit surprised that the minders were willing to take me here.
What a beautiful home.
There were 6 government officials watching our every move. Like others in Pyongyang, this was a privileged family. The woman lived there with 4 of her family members, including her 2 granddaughters. The first thing I noticed was that there weren't any family pictures, just image after image of Kim Jong-il and his father.
Of all their pictures, which is your favorite picture?
장모님 영상을 다 우린 좋아합니다.
Every portrait of good little.
Of course,
yeah,
every picture.
Very good.
Absolutely.
We were warned to photograph the dear leader carefully.
So from here up, what happens if it's only half? What happens? Why not? No? Okay.
We weren't supposed to ask why. We were supposed to sit down and be entertained by the granddaughter. Finally, we sat down with the family and asked a few questions.
How difficult is life for your mother without sight?
The son-in-law answered without missing a beat.
눈에 안 보여서 제일 안타까운 게 위대한 실용력 경영장관이고 자이런 영상을 뵙지 못하는 게 제일 안타까워.
Why do you want to see the supreme leader so much, so bad?
이 세상에 났다가 우리 수령님 덕에 우리 자식들 팔남매가 이렇게 행복하게 사는 걸 우리 수령님은 쳐다보고 인사하고 싶어도 수령님이 용상이 우리 빛이라도 보였으면 하는 소원이 됐습니다.
She was obviously moved, but what surprised me was so was everyone else.
This party official is crying.
Even this government minder.
어머니 말씀 들어서 눈물이 나는데 나라도 그 장군님 안 계신다면 우리는 다 죽은 목숨을 하는 거예요. 나도 어렸을 때 아버지 잃고 정말 장군님 품속에서 학원을 거쳐서 오늘처럼 이렇게 도민의 대사 지도를 이루라는데
I just wonder, can the great leader do anything wrong?
What?
Can the great leader do anything wrong? Is there anything wrong? Or he's always, what he says is magical?
I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Okay.
I truly believe that our minder did not understand my question because I think he may have perceived me to be questioning the authority of the dear leader, and that was something just incomprehensible. And so he didn't even understand how to translate such a question.
These elements create a social environment where loyalty feels normalized, expected, and tied to the collective identity. In this particular case, the key catalyst is the fusion of the leader with the nation. When the leader becomes positioned as the embodiment of stability, protection, continuity, then all the criticism to all this, it becomes a threat to unity. It becomes a threat to the people's survival. And this reinforces the idea that loyalty is not optional, it's necessary.
North Korea's defiant stance toward the rest of the world stems from a philosophy created by Kim Il-sung called Juche.
The Juche philosophy basically means up yours to the outside world. We can make everything ourselves, we don't need you. And from an outsider's perspective, it's a peculiar thing. I mean, why make such a big deal? Your people are starving, you've got no economy, you've got no trade. But in the Korean context, it has a profound resonance because Korean history is one of invasion and all sorts of abuse from major powers. So the North Koreans turned this history around and said, we're not going to take it anymore. And for Koreans, there is a very profound thrill that someone would have the guts to stand up and be like that.
It also supported the godlike status of Kim Il-sung during a 50-year reign.
어머니 수령님을 존중이 않지 않은 연고차가 서서히 어머니 수령.
When Kim Il-sung died in 1994, he left behind a traumatized nation.
영결의 시각이 다가왔단 말이니까.
His son, Kim Jong-il, took power in the world's first communist dynastic handover. And now his son, Kim Jong-un, continues to use the Juche ideology of self-reliance to unify the nation and crush all dissent.
And consequences of all this, well, we're seeing the outcome is a reality structure where the image of the leader must be preserved for the system to function. Accountability becomes very difficult and dissent carries social and structural risk, putting the people into a sort of deadlock. They can't really do anything. The pattern is simple. When the leader becomes the group's identity, loyalty becomes mandatory and reality bends to protect them. Most of them don't realize that anything is wrong, like I've said. And this is one of the big things we gotta, when we're looking at these stories as an outside perspective, we have to remember, put ourselves in the shoes of the people on the inside. It's a totally different thought pattern going on here. Like I mentioned earlier, I was going to do a little bit more detail on this cult type, the cult of personality, because of online influencers, creators, wellness and spirituality peddlers, so forth. They're showing, like online social media, showing the embodiment of cults of personalities everywhere.
The sort of clever but also dangerous aspect of the online communities is the way the algorithms work. And so that you click on something and before you know it, something else pops up and then you click on that and you get led down these paths without maybe even realizing where you're going.
You know how TikTok is. You watch one video, you linger on it for like 1.2 milliseconds than what you would do for any other video, and that's it. The algorithm has got you covered now. You gotta watch this bold dude comparing women to pets for like the rest of your life now.
Like, I'm not saying you can't train any girl, but
hopefully most people watch that clip and are like, oh, this guy is kind of dumb. But when you have that sort of an insane reach on the internet, it will reach that audience that's a lot more convinced by him.
You don't need a government to build a personality cult. You just need a platform, constant contact, a recognizable persona, and an audience that feels personally connected to you. And this is one of the key takeaways with all these cult types. The psychology behind all this does not change. It's just the platform or the wrapper looks a little bit different. And sadly, nowadays, the platform is very easily accessible, and we're seeing it everywhere.
How quickly does brand creation slide into the cult of personality? Because yes, the Britannica definition is what a PR team will do for you as an influencer. And I do not believe that every influencer is intentionally trying to foster a cult of personality. It's just the game. They're just playing the game. And most top content creators stop at the quasi-religious part of that definition. The rest, a deliberately created system of art, symbolism, and ritual centered on the institutionalized glorification of a specific individual, that's just branding 101. That's marketing 101. That's what you're supposed to do. So that is the first stop in this slippery slope from influencer to cult leader.
So let's talk more about the parasocial engine.
Because once a person is inside a group, something extraordinary happens. They start to think, act, and believe like the group. This is the phenomenon of groupthink, a psychological process where the desire for harmony and conformity in the group leads to irrational or dysfunctional decision-making.
One of the key things that is played on, whether knowingly or unknowingly, by the personality of the person is the parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are very one-sided, most of the time one-sided. Emotional bonds where audiences feel close to a public figure who doesn't know them on a personal level. Some of these, and if we're getting into like stars like Taylor Swift, like they don't even know you. Whereas like there might be ones like creators who stream or TikTokers who stream and they at least like know their audience in the chat. So there's different levels to all this. Social media intensifies it all because it feels reciprocal. So like I said, there might be live streams, live stream replies, interacting on comments as well under videos and things. The creator also might do like a post where they're talking about vulnerability or a sad time in their life and the community like connects with that. There might also be inside language too. Like they, even from a marketing aspect, they tell you to like name your community, put like a sort of label on it so people feel like they belong, and that'll help like deepen your brand. And they teach you that with marketing 101 essentially. And that's what people do for their communities. But in essence too, it's opening it up to this like cult kind of thinking. It's a dangerous slope. Slippery slope. But yeah, even with creators who live stream, let's say, like the closer ones, the ones who are closer to their community would be like live streamers. They speak directly with their audience members live. But it still doesn't mean that both sides know one another in the same way one would know a family member or friend. And because the viewer or the fans only get to know the public facing side of the personality, the fans develop a skewed viewpoint. They often assign their favorite creator, influencer, whatever, assign them aspects of infallibility. The viewer doesn't just follow the creator, they feel connected to them. They feel like they're part of their life. And that's not automatically harmful, but relating to cults specifically, it becomes harmful when identity fuses with the creator. When criticism feels personal, like the audience takes it personally, and when loyalty becomes social currency. So how did these creator personality cults form? Well, modern personality cults, they don't require compounds or memberships anymore. They form through the repeatable system. They still implement the thing like myth making. They might assign something to their favorite creator. They might be, they always tell the truth, or the only honest one out there. The one who is speaking up and not being silenced by the world. Then we have the omnipresence. This is where they do maybe constant uploads. People clip them all the time, and you keep seeing the person showing up in your algorithm over and over again. Then loyalty signaling. There's public defense, real supporters, haters versus us. It's sort of when the community assigns themselves an identity and it starts becoming toxic to a fault. But it doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. And then you get into the reality distortion loop. Praise equals proof. Criticism is prosecution. Evidence is propaganda. Audience then become the enforcers. They might do brigading, harassment, social punishment. The creator doesn't need to silence critics because the community does it for them. And they don't even need to ask them to do it in a lot of these cases too. So what are the consequences during this creator era? Example of this. The consequence of all this is the creator becomes unaccountable inside their own bubble. Dissent becomes socially expensive because people tie their social worth to it. Truth becomes optional now. And the key insight is you don't need formal membership for personality cult dynamics. You only need a symbol, an emotional attachment, and a community that treats criticism as betrayal. And I want to add in a little bit of a reality check because this is something that I thought of when I was first reading up on cult personalities. Community around a shared topic can be a great thing as long as it stays healthy. That means that we keep room for respectful criticism, disagreement, and course correction. And I know, obviously, I'm a creator and I'm at risk of doing this as well. Like all of us are at risk of accidentally falling into this. So it can seem a little strange for me discussing this topic, kind of calling myself out, but we should. I would like to think of this as a learning moment and reminder that as creators, we need to ensure that we have a reality check every once in a while. There's no perfect way for creators to prevent these dynamics. Like I said, a lot of times you don't even notice it forming until the audience gets too large and then it gets too impossible to manage. So if you're a creator and you don't want to build this kind of ecosystem, just set up some guardrails for yourself. Don't reward and recognize only praise. Make safe space for people to disagree with you or others. Don't frame critics as enemies by default. And also say clearly and repeatedly, don't harass people for me. This is something that even I gotta remind myself a lot to say in a lot of my videos. And this is a key aspect because saying it out loud helps reinforce it. Also, be careful with language that turns community into identity. And this is the iffy one with the marketing. Like I said, sometimes I tell you to label your community with a cute little nickname. The goal is to provide a space where the topic matters more than the creator and where people can leave without being punished. If your audience can't tolerate you being wrong, that's not loyalty, that's a problem. For me anyway, I'm open to hearing your critique. I may not agree, and that's okay. That's the nature of my whole channel, to be honest, to discuss, expose, and break down ideas, stories, etc. So let me just discuss a couple case studies from this sort of modern side of personality cults. I'm going to give you a trigger warning right now. With Teal Swan, we're going to be discussing mental health issues. And then after that, we're going to be discussing Andrew Tate and the Manosphere. And that stuff, very heavy material, trigger warning for DV and different things of that nature as well. I just wanted to give you all a heads up because this stuff gets a little dark. Teal Swan. I am this spiritual teacher.
She's incorporating practices that can be harmful.
I feel like she's Jesus.
If you want to come within 50 miles of me, you better be ready for the deepest end of the pool.
Right off the bat, a few things to say. The topic of Teal Swan has to do with people that are dealing with mental health struggles, and Teal Swan is especially known for having followers and being responsible in talking about the subject matter of someone who is grappling with thoughts of ending their own existence. As we all know, YouTube doesn't like us using certain words. But as a reminder, this is not really YouTube, this is the advertisers that don't want attached to it. So this section will have censorship, but you all know what we're saying and you all understand the topic matter at hand. In my opinion, I feel that it's better to dance around and work with YouTube's wants and rules so that we can get the message out about things like these cults versus getting upset about it or whatever and freaking out in the comments, all right? So you don't need to freak out in the comments. Everyone needs to calm down. This is like such a non-issue, this whole thing about language being changed by censorship. Human language has evolved over hundreds and thousands of years. You go back a couple hundred years, we wouldn't even be able to understand English. People need to stop getting upset about that. Instead, get upset about these cult leaders still existing on these platforms. All right, let's get into this. She is a combination. She started in the conspirituality field, where conspirituality, you're not really following necessarily one person, but you're following an idea. right? A theory or whatever it might be. And she built upon that to then build out her brand in herself. So she has become a cult of personality, but she did originally start in the conspirituality field. We're going to be talking about conspirituality in the next set of videos, the next parts of this that are going to be coming out, not this week, but the next week. And we're going to be getting into conspirituality stuff, and it's related into conspiracy theory, spirituality. And this is where it's important to kind of understand that a lot of these people can fit into different types of cults. Like the different classification can fit multiple types of cults and cult leaders. I'm going to include this short video from Knitting Cult Lady. I really recommend her. She has very good insight on this stuff. She has a lot of good feedback on everything, and she does talk about conspirituality a bit here too. I did want to include part of her video with the Teal Swan thing just to introduce you guys to her.
Y'all have asked me about Teal Swan. Here's a bit about her from Conspirituality: How New Age Conspiracies Became a Health Threat. And she was a survivor of the Satanic Panic, which was spiritualists telling children and implanting memories in children that they had been ritually used in these ritualistic things. And it was a big thing in the 80s and 90s. None of it turned out to be true. Mary Bosworth is now known as Teal Swan, is her claim that she suffered 13 years of abuse in a Schmurderous Mormon satanic cult where she was routinely tortured, made to torture other children, and once spent 12 hours sewn into a corpse. And again, she's not a survivor of this. She's a survivor of a psychologist who was a conspiritualist planting this in her head. Conspiritualist. On the basis of these stories, but without training, qualifications, or oversight, Swan developed a signature method for healing deep trauma that she calls the completion process. 50 practitioners trained in the method are listed on her website. She also invites followers to a $5,000 week-long retreat at her casa in Costa Rica. Some retreatants end up never leaving, choosing instead to live there and work for Swan as unpaid volunteers. It's a cult.
Teal Swan is a spiritual and self-help influencer whose work sparked ongoing discussion about personality-driven influence in the wellness space. She built a very large following around trauma healing and emotional truth, while also facing sustained media scrutiny over her methods, messaging, and follower dynamics.
Teal Swan claims that she is an expert in human suffering and focuses on healing trauma through spiritual practices. Her most popular videos have titles like How to Activate and Open Your Third Eye, How to Heal the Emotional Body, How to Use Your Intuition, and How to Get Rid of Anxiety. Once you click, you're greeted with Teal Swan speaking to you softly in front of a green screen, telling you to embrace your emotions.
The alternative is to completely embrace your emotions and your feelings, no matter how painful or uncomfortable they may be.
And for many people, this works. The comments are flooded with testimonies of people who've been deeply affected by the video. One person writes, Teal literally has the presence of a mother. She's so caring and nurturing in a way. It felt like Teal was an angel. Another replies, she's one of my mother figures. I think maybe the second most important to my heart.
Teal Swan is the product of the Satanic Panic. The Satanic Panic got so out of control as there were therapists essentially planting memories into children's heads. And where Teal Swan was from, it was Utah. And across Arizona and Utah, there was a very popular therapist, is Barbara Snow.
Barbara Snow, who used a technique called memory regression to coax children into admitting that they had been victims of satanic rituals and had witnessed atrocities. The victims did not know that they were victims until they'd had this so-called memory regression, and it seemed more likely that Barbara and her associates had been implanting and creating these memories during the sessions.
Her practice of memory regression therapy has been largely discredited. In my opinion, I think that they should be pulling licenses of therapists still doing this stuff. It's been widely known that this stuff actually implants memories, but I don't know. I guess Utah's going to do what Utah's going to do. At the very least, it looks like the police officers there have discredited Barbara, at least in the precinct or whatever. They don't take her reports seriously, which is good because it's just a waste of police resources for a bunch of BS.
In 2006, Barbara Snow filed a complaint with the North Park Police Department in North Logan, Utah, on behalf of her patient, Teal Swan. This is the psychologist from earlier. After the deputy county attorney looked into Snow's history of false accusations, Swan's files were closed. The psychologist's history of false accusations.
And Teal would later say that she remembered everything from her childhood, but yet those memories didn't come until after she started seeing Barbara Snow.
From the age of 6 up until she was 19 years old, she says that she was a victim of this satanic ritual, and Barbara Snow herself was Teal's therapist during the early 2000s when Teal was in her early 20s and had just escaped this alleged cult.
So I would wake up 3:22 a.m., walk out to the end of the driveway, and he'd pick me up and we'd go do these cult rituals.
Teal Swan claims that she was abused and tortured by a man who was part of a satanic cult. She claims to have seen children sacrificed before her eyes. She claims to have been sex trafficked, drugged, and taken away in her sleep to satanic rituals, and has done many lengthy public interviews about her story.
I think that maybe she experienced some kind of trauma when she was younger that led her down this path. I do think that she is a victim of Barbara, in my opinion, allegedly, and I don't think she's actually worked through any trauma, any real trauma she has had, because it's been veiled in this fantasy of the satanic panic stuff that Barbara has been pushing for some time now. And Teal likes to use this excuse that she cannot be running a cult because she is the product of a cult herself. There's a few clips I'm going to show you from this video from Uncle Herman, and they actually go into some detail about some of her background and find some holes in her story, so I'm going to include those as well here.
They went to work doing all kinds of horrific stuff to try to get me to come back to Christ. So my childhood, from age what I consider 6, even though technically it started beforehand, that was when I really consider the end of my childhood, when I got brought into them and I really didn't belong to my parents anymore. All the way to 19, I was with these groups and specifically with this man.
However, a once close friend of Teal was interviewed for the Gateway podcast, which is a 6-episode investigation into Teal Swan by Jennings Brown, which I highly recommend and will link below. And in this interview, Tori explains that Teal tried to convince her that they had known each other before and had both been victims of the same cult. Tori was referred to Barbara Snow by Teal, who said that Barbara would help her remember. Tori then claims that Barbara tried to tell her things about her childhood that were not true.
We got in a fight because she was telling me these things that were insane. She began to start telling me that I had actually grown up with her and that I was a part of this cult that she had been experiencing. That we met when we were at this ritual in the woods, in the mountains. It was like a child sacrifice. And she would kind of say things like, "Do you remember the trees? Do you remember the fire, the people?" And I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. That's insane. She just said that there was a lot of work that I needed to do because I was repressing all of these memories of being abused to the degree that she says that she had been abused. So we just got in this argument that ended with me just being in tears, because I'm like, I care about you as a friend, but I can't grasp this. I don't understand what you're doing here, why you're telling me this, and why you're trying to convince me so much that this thing happened. So finally she just wrote down on a piece of paper, Barbara Snow.
Another childhood friend of Teal's came forward on a podcast and claimed that Teal had also convinced her that she had repressed memories that she needed to uncover.
Well, and even though you didn't recover a memory, I imagine you were still brainstorming a lot of potential scenarios that could have, the thoughts are always there in your mind. You're still exposing your brain constantly to images of you being abused almost, even though you know that you're just brainstorming.
You look through every aspect of your life and question it, and then you don't know your life anymore. There's what's real, what's not real. You lose your life trying to find things that weren't there in your life, that you kind of die a little inside.
And this woman and how she's speaking about the situation, this is what's happened to victims of the satanic panic, victims of these therapists. They end up questioning their life. It's is this real? Is this not real? And they get confused. And this is why this practice is largely discredited, and it just does damage.
And if it was Barbara Snow who supposedly uncovered these memories of Teal's, I would have more reason to believe that Teal was a victim of Barbara's false memories.
So how did she sort of set this up? So her platform grew within the spiritual and wellness world, spaces that often draw people looking for healing, validation, and meaning. The messaging emphasizes being deeply understood and finding transformation outside traditional systems. And some of the techniques that we see in this particular case. Her influence reflects common personality-centered dynamics, looking at things like strong personal branding tied to emotional authority. It was emotional stories. There's also confessional content that builds intimacy and trust, letting you into her inner life. Framing herself as uniquely honest or willing to say what others won't. Teal's therapy technique is called the completion process, and it's pretty much memory regression therapy and implanted memory therapy with a different name.
The completion process is Teal Swan's signature method of healing. She has written books about it and claims that this is the best way to heal trauma. Teal believes that all mental ailments and some physical ailments are a result of childhood trauma that you may not even remember until you do her completion process. Sounds a little similar to our friend Barbara Snow, and it is, in my opinion. The process involves asking what your bad feelings are currently or when you were last triggered. You're then asked when in your memory you first felt these feelings. This is almost always when the person was a child. Teal will then ask you to embellish as much as you can in this scene in which you were a child, and more often than not there will be a parent present who is mistreating you in some way and causing you to feel this feeling. You then relive this trauma, sit with the emotion, and you're supposedly on the path to releasing that emotion. As Teal claims to know you better than yourself, she's able to get your repressed memories out. She holds seminars and retreats where people can go through this with her or with one of her inner circle. You see, you can become a certified completion process practitioner by taking one of her courses, and the people that take this course then become almost Teal's disciples. Many of them live with Teal and join her on her retreats, whilst others return home to practice the completion process remotely. It is these disciples who I believe are the ones in Teal's cult.
So she's essentially creating new victims of the satanic panic. This is Jared, an ex-follower, and I believe they also dated for some time as well. He has a lot to say about Teal.
What she said is like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to uncover your repressed memories. Lie down and let your brain show you whatever your brain
comes up with.
Yeah, and so you make up these fanciful, horrific tales of all sorts of disgusting, disturbing things, and you do it for hours and hours, and you build upon this narrative that gets bigger and longer.
Why did you feel like you needed to do this?
Because I had to learn who I really was.
And there's community language as well that reinforces belonging in the group, and criticism reframed as misunderstanding or projection. She did a lot of that backtracking when there was that documentary released about her. Additionally, when you go to look for documentaries of Teal Swan, there are two. There is one which is called The Deep End.
So, with all of these allegations and concerns bubbling beneath the surface, a documentary crew began following Teal and created a 4-part documentary for Hulu, which many viewers now take as evidence that Teal is in fact running a cult, despite Teal's constant efforts to debunk it. The true cult allegations actually don't lie within her millions of online followers, but within her inner circle, the people who left behind their families, their identities, and in some cases their own autonomy to follow her and live in her commune. She tells them that they are not allowed to have partners, to have children, or to have any relationships outside of the inner circle. In exchange for their loyalty, they are offered room and board and the promise of spiritual healing through their proximity to Teal. Technically, you can leave when you want, but at great cost.
And this crew lived and stayed or something with Teal for 3 years, or was in her life for 3 years, the documentary crew. So this is based off 3 years of work, and as well they bring in people that are licensed therapists and cult experts and things like that to get their opinions on things that they're seeing. It's a very well done documentary, and since this came out, it's pretty much proved that she's a cult leader for the most part. But as well, there's another documentary that I believe she funded, which is called Open Shadow. So just be aware, there's 2 of them.
Also wish that people knew more about the criteria for a cult. What I do is empower the individual. That is the exact opposite of what a cult can do. In fact, a cult can't exist unless one person is empowered and the rest of them are unempowered. Besides, teaching people to trust themselves, that's your recipe for loss of control. So unless I'm the worst cult leader that ever existed.
And this is why this video is important. Just because you don't fit the definition of a coercive, high control cult, it doesn't mean that you're not a cult. You're just a different kind of cult. You might not be high control, even though she is. But she's trying to say that because she's not like Jim Jones, therefore she's not a cult. Like, this is her thought process, right? And this is what she tries to play on, is the words and the terms and stuff to prove that she isn't a cult because she doesn't fit this perfect box of what she believes a cult is, which I'm sure her belief of cult came from the Satanic Panic. And in my opinion, she seems very calculated and very cold, and like she knows what she's doing. I don't think that she's as innocent as she comes across or tries to come across.
She jokes in one interview that she has found a group of codependent people.
There seemed to be a type of innocence and kindness, both.
Super codependent people.
So how did...
But this is not a joke. She has actively created a group of people who are completely codependent. They are dependent on her, and she is dependent on them for creating and upholding her Teal Swan empire. These are often vulnerable people who have nowhere else to go, and whose entire purpose becomes Teal Swan.
That clip is also another example. One of the things that I am trying to get across here too is that we have people that are personality cults or, different influencers online. Yes, they may not control their following necessarily in some cases, but they have like a closer group, and that's who they're really actually coercively controlling. And then their following they're using to make them money, get them fame, like send their message out and so forth. And that will bring them in more followers that they can coercively control, which she does do coercive control.
Teal was married at the time, but told Jared that she and him were meant to be together. Eventually, Teal cheated on her husband with Jared and began a relationship with him, and her husband slowly got kicked out of the picture. Like many in Teal's inner circle, Jared was given a new name, and to her, he was known as Fallon. We can see that many of Teal's followers will adopt new names once they become associated with her, as Cyan proudly tells the camera in the 2022 documentary.
My actual legal name is Matthew. Are you familiar with Teal's work?
No.
Both Teal and I at the same time were like, something feels so different to where like my name doesn't even feel like it matches me anymore. Like that's some other identity. And then we came up with this name together.
She was all about monitoring, controlling what I said and who I said it to. And like if I was on the phone with someone, I was on speaker and everyone was listening in and she'd just be like, see, like he is evil or whatever, just like all sorts of stuff. And she wanted me to cut out my family, but in like a backhanded way of like, they're not good for you.
Another devout follower, Andy, made a video on his experience of Teal's inner circle and claims that it functions like a cult.
It's a weird one because it doesn't look or act like a regular cult in a lot of senses. Like, it is a cult and it does fit the criteria, but it does in a kind of roundabout way. So it's easy for example, Teal to say, I have the perfect recipe for a cult, but it's not a cult because of my ethics, which, that's a whole other can of worms.
As well, in the documentary, they show that there's like a contract that people have to sign, the people that come to live with Teal on her commune. And it reads like a cult. It's like a cult contract. So I'll put a little bit of that here as well for you to check out.
Which is called the non-negotiables. And this is a list of the things that people have to agree to if they're going to be part of this inner circle. And it does not read well. It's, you can't put your own family first. The Teal has to come first. If she wants you there, she gets you. The priority of the entire community is whatever's in the best interests of Teal. Everything else is second to that. You can't have personal boundaries that have in any way an effect on Teal.
What happens in the documentary is one of Teal's best friends, have been around since the beginning, ends up meeting a woman, getting engaged, and tries to bring her into the commune. And all through that documentary, Teal just seems to be not liking her, really jealous of her, upset that she's there, and she just kind of turns on them all. But in doing so, it's done in a very coercive fashion. So I'll show you a little bit about it as well. And also the girl, even at the end, she says that she's scared of Teal. It's very creepy, to say the least.
I feel like what we need to do as team members is choose what consequences we say yes to upon bringing a partner into this circle.
Yeah. Basically, what this boils down to is I need to be able to get rid of you if you bring somebody close that's dangerous to me.
Yeah.
I can't be kept awake at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning before an interview by a screaming baby.
All the girls here are on board. We're not having kids.
We need to write this down. I want this to be part of the contract.
The fact that Blake, her closest friend of nearly 20 years, was kicked out because he began a relationship with an outsider.
If you want to flip the favor around, like you guys have been doing to me, the level of judgment you have on me being a narcissistic bitch, you're an absolute loser. Always will be. Do you think I control others, even the way they see things? Do you think I'm too masculine, too harsh, not very nice, don't care about people, manipulate Blake? I'm tyrannical, have the wrong values, use people. I hurt myself and others. I'm power hungry and responsible for the power struggles between you and me. I want everyone for myself. I surround myself with enablers, that I'm very powerful, that I'm very talented, that I have a very meaningful mission. How conflicting. Yeah, this is what you've been doing since the minute you landed. You keep insulting me. It's all over your energy field. So I suggest you talk about that.
What do you feel when you hear that, Juliana?
Because if you're not aware, you have the smirk on your face.
A smirk? No, I'm afraid, actually.
So yeah, that was his fiance, and I do find it interesting because Teal had a smirk on her face when she did that to her, not the other way around.
Did you ever think, what if she's lying, or could this be false, or?
No, because I'm in so much pain and I'm holding I'm feeling so bad, and she has the answers that I'm holding myself hostage to all this. I'm forcing myself. This is the way.
Because you're desperate.
I'm desperate.
Now I want to explore the catalyst with this group of how things have kind of been taking a downfall. You could debate me on this, but it feels like as media coverage and documentaries sort of criticized her, they got a culty feeling from her, this actually reinforced the loyalty among her supporters, and it intensified the cult environment. And then she started doing this whole they're out to get me. And I feel like that kind of triggered it to be the real culty aspect to it. But it's something to explore. All right, now let's take a look at the consequences and the victims of Teal Swan. And this is where things actually head down a darker path, as it's not just the people in her inner circle, in her commune. Yes, that's a coercive cult, but she has also been affecting her followers too, and there has been, unfortunately, some deaths because of her.
Beneath the soft-spoken wisdom and New Age mysticism lies something far more unsettling. Her teachings have been accused of encouraging dependency, isolation, and causing multiple suicides. Many mental health professionals have called Teal's methods reckless and harmful. Teal rejects traditional psychology and therefore has no qualifications or license in this field. She claims that she does not need one, as she has divine knowledge and experience and is not healing people in ways that can be researched via traditional academic routes. However, in 2017, she did receive a cease and desist from the state of Utah for attempting to practice mental health therapy without a license. The fine was never paid, and around this time, Teal Swan relocated to Costa Rica to start running her retreats there.
Moving to another country to avoid getting in trouble by the law and being held accountable, well, that's a pretty good sign that this might be a cult or, at the very least, criminal activity.
In 2012, Teal's first one-on-one client took her own life. For the sake of this video, I'll call this client Joanne. Joanne had been struggling with depression for many years. After seeking help through traditional routes and taking antidepressants, she sought out Teal Swan for alternative therapy. Through Teal's one-on-one sessions, she uncovered suppressed memories of extreme childhood trauma involving her father. Joanne's husband was also a follower of Teal and claims that Teal told him that he had been married to her in a past life. We don't know why Joanne took her own life and what role Teal may or may not have played in it, but it did did spark a larger conversation about the dangers of the way that Teal speaks about death.
What sparked the controversy around Teal and how she recommends looking at death is this video. I'm just going to show a little bit of it because I don't think YouTube likes this video being around. It's from the BBC, did a documentary. It's 2 separate videos of hers, just so you get an idea of the things that she was encouraging of her followers.
What suicide is pushing the reset button. It's not a good or bad decision in and of itself.
After their documentary, they actually spoke to YouTube and got them to pull the video, but there is still copies of it floating around on YouTube, which brings me full circle back into these people should not be platformed on YouTube because they are essentially cult leaders, allegedly in my opinion, and they're doing damage to people. And the one client that I mentioned here isn't the only one. There's at least 4 that we know of, and that number was said during this BBC documentary, which was I think a couple of years ago. The only reason that some of these are known is because they had family and friends who looked at their computers after and realized that they were consuming Teal's content. And so we don't know. The number could be higher than the 4 that people know about. Additionally, these people's names are not publicized anywhere. And normally I do try to recognize and tell the story of the victims, but I think a lot of people, because I have been through this too, someone who's like a sister to me did this, and a lot of people don't like to publicize their names. A lot of people feel that it ruins their memory of them. So I'm not going to show their names or anything like that, but there is a statement, an interview that the BBC did with the mother of one of the victims. So I'll show you that, but the other ones I'm not going to go digging for who they are. It seems that they want to be left anonymous, and that makes, in this particular type of death, it's very common.
Teal believes in reincarnation. She tells viewers to imagine their deaths.
So let yourself physically give up on life by falling on the floor.
According to Teal, this will make people see that there's nowhere to go from death but back to life. So why leave? In a Google video search on terms related to suicide, that film came up as one of the top results with more than 230,000 views.
And has optimized her videos so that anyone who's struggling may type their desperate pleas for help into the YouTube search bar and be greeted by one of her videos. She admits to using specific tags to target desperate and vulnerable people in an interview with Jennings Brown on episode 3 of the Gateway podcast.
She wants to get her message to people when they're desperate, in dire need. She has good SEO. It's all intentional.
I specifically try to go for tags and things like that capture that audience. Mm-hmm. When you're in a desperate state, it's not sophisticated. Mm-hmm. People, when they're in that state, they type in shit like, I just lost my mother, what the fuck do I do?
Right.
Literally, that will be the Google tagline. So even when we're doing videos, we'll add things like that so that someone's title or somebody's just had a breakup or whatever, that's the video that comes up.
Teal was explicit. She uses tags that target people.
So the BBC did an investigative piece on Teal, and just to give a little TLDR of it, they immersed themselves in Teal, but they found she had a closed Facebook group with over 20,000 people. In that group, there was a lot of people who were dealing with thoughts of taking their own lives. And as part of that, whenever someone would post that, people would then link Teal's video, which is very problematic in and of itself. So I'm going to play you some excerpts of the interview BBC did with a mother of someone who is in that group, someone who is not alive today. And then they interviewed Teal, and it's pretty clear that Teal sees this as a statistical game to her, that, she's not culpable because statistics say that there's bound to be somebody who would do that to themselves, especially in the field that she's in.
You would have to convince me otherwise that Teal's teachings did not play a significant role.
Her mum says she was a talented artist.
She had a gift for lighting.
Drawing on paper and online.
Eyes were always extraordinary. I know everybody thinks that maybe their child is an artist, but she really was.
She shared this drawing she'd done of Teal in the Facebook group.
I have to remove parts of this BBC video because YouTube won't like the terminology. Her daughter had a breakup. She was not dealing with it well. She ended up in that group talking about her thoughts. those thoughts. The people in the group shared Teal's videos on this matter, and then her daughter, 2 weeks later, she was gone.
There's the day that your child took their life, and Mother's Day, and there's Father's Day, and some of the most joyous days of your life become some of the most challenged days.
After her death, she trawled her daughter's social media and saw her posts on Teal's Facebook group. What did you think of the responses to your daughter's post?
I can't even believe that when you're in a group of people to pass along a video of that nature, that's the tool that you think will help someone when they're in that phase of their life. Well, I believe that there were more than one undercurrent happening in the life of our daughter. You would have to convince me otherwise that Teal's teachings did not play a significant role in the mind of our daughter when she took her life.
Well, certainly on your Facebook page, there have been at least 2 quite young people that have taken their own lives.
I'm not aware of them.
I am about to go on a rant about this, but I just want to pop in here real quick. Look at how she reacts to that and has no empathy or care at all. And then listen to the rest of how she talks.
I'm not aware of them. If you look at the demographic of people who are interested in my type of material, you're working with an unstable group of people already, a very large following that I have. The fact that I am now responsible for and people who came to me, that's pretty insane, too, to say that towards anyone.
I don't quite know how to put it all in words, what I'm seeing with Teal, but just you chose to make this your career. You chose to be a guru in this field. You are responsible for what happens. You can't just say, I'm not responsible because, all these numbers in the world and I have no control over what people do. When you are literally helping people with this, this is why people are trained in this field and why you refuse to do training and have taken off to another country when they tried to shut you down, because look at what you're offering. It's dangerous. And the fact that Teal still doesn't get that, I don't know. I think she does. In my opinion, I don't think that she actually is dealing with a lot of the stuff that people like this deals with. Like, I have firsthand experience with it, a bunch of other people in my life, and I've seen a lot of it. Teal just seems like someone who's taking advantage of people who are in a really tough position. She knows what she's doing and she wants to make money off them, build her commune cult, whatever it might be. In my opinion, it's all my opinion. Teal really comes off very cold, uncaring, almost sociopath, like psychopath kind of attitude towards the people that she refuses to take responsibility for affecting, where it is her problem. It is her responsibility, as she chose to make this her job. She chose to take on this subject matter. She chose to use it in SEO and tags and all the other crap to attract this type of people. And this is why people like this shouldn't have a platform. Sadly, why I get heated about these cult personalities. It's not just like spiritual gurus. It's also weird health advice, psychics. We're going to get into Andrew Tate in a second too. The Manosphere crap. It is some of the scummiest people who are just feeding off of everyone's fears and insecurities, and they create these cults around them. And social media has just made it so much easier for these people to find an audience, take advantage of people, and hurt people. And it's just crazy that this is where we're at now. Even the follow-up video after this one too, that I'm also linking to everything, is the update on Ashley Gillard, that TikTok psychic who accused someone of being a murderer, which they weren't. And there's like a whole civil case and everything that happened there. But she had a huge following that were believing everything she said too. And this is the problem. We really need more critical thinking, or I don't even know how to resolve the issue. Social media is just a breeding ground for horrible people to find people who are struggling and in that moment weak-minded or weak-willed and just take advantage of them. Sorry, that's my little bit of a rant there. To get back on track here, the host of this BBC documentary ends up seeking out a psychologist and asking his opinion about like this Facebook group and the dangers surrounding it. He has some good insight I'll include as well.
If you're and you go onto a forum and everybody is suicidal, then it normalizes being. And so I think social media platforms have an enormous responsibility.
As I already mentioned, after this documentary came out, or when they were working on it, they reached out to Facebook, YouTube. They had the YouTube video removed. Teal's channel remained, though, and is still there. But the video was re-uploaded like minutes later. And then the Facebook group was shut down. And then a new one was started again with the same admins. Just Teal herself wasn't no longer an admin on it, but it's the people that run all of her stuff are still admins on this group. So it really didn't resolve anything. And you can go watch, I'll link it as well. The whole BBC interview, I didn't include it all. The whole one with Teal, she's very cold. She's very does not care that people have hurt themselves because of content that she has made. Like, she really is very cold. In the interview, I mean, she giggled about people who are in that state of mind and was very flippant and dismissive about her fans doing this stuff. I think that her team or her whatever, they recognized how bad she looked on camera. Like, I honestly don't understand how she has a following. Anyway, her interview was very dismissive of the people who have lost their lives, and she ended up releasing a statement about her views on those thoughts and people acting on the thoughts. The statement that she released is very much written by a PR company. Like, you can tell it was like, we got to clean up this disaster of an interview that you just did. I think that all of her interviews like this always just show her true self.
There's been a lot of confusion and misconception about my stance on. To be crystal clear, I'm against.
Later, in a statement, Teal told us that any suicide is a tragedy and we send our deepest condolences to this young woman's family. She also added that many mental health professionals support my teaching. When it comes to this sort of content, the stakes are high.
Life is something that is precious, not something that has a reset button where if you're not happy with the way that things are today, that you can have a new tomorrow. A decision like that, which we're now living, will affect their loved ones for the rest of their life.
I'm just putting any helplines up on the screen. I will also put them all in the reference document as well that I have linked. If this topic and this discussion was at all triggering to you, you need some help, please do reach out to these services. I'm unsure nowadays if the YouTube AI is going to pick this up and flag this video. So if for some reason this gets cut later, the information is still going to be in the references below. There's much more that obviously we could get into about Teal. This is already going to be super long as it is. We'll just end with a final note from Jared, who was saying that he heard her talking about being fake. But that's the other thing to keep in mind. She also claims she's a reincarnation of all these famous people. She also claims that she has access to the Akashic records, which are supposed to be past, present, and future, which means she would have seen the future of her agreeing to this documentary and it blowing up in her face. But apparently she didn't see that. So we didn't even go down these logical fallacies about this stuff. I really just concentrated on the most dangerous aspects of Teal. People who have died, and she refuses to take responsibility of that, and she continues doing what she's doing.
She's like, everyone's going to know I'm a fraud. Everyone's going to know I'm.
What would lead to her saying that? What would be the situation?
I think being tired and just moments of honesty. It was late at night and just moments of honesty. Like,
she would say what?
I'm afraid everyone's going to know that I'm a fraud, that I'm fake.
This is going to be a huge tone shift. We're going from sad to probably angry, so just preparing you ahead of time. In the last case study for this video, I want to look at Andrew Tate. I wanted to explore a well-known cult personality, which was North Korea. Then I wanted to explore the more female-dominated ones, which tend to be spiritual, health-related, so I chose Teal Swan. But there is a huge male-dominated one. Nowadays, especially, we're looking at things to do with the Manosphere. So we're going to take a look at Andrew Tate, and we're going to take a look at the Manosphere in general. And interestingly enough, a documentary was actually recently released on Netflix about the Manosphere as I'm working on this. So I did watch that, and I did find a YouTube video that was interesting for commentary on it. So I'll see if I'm able to squeeze all that in here or not. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's jump into Andrew Tate and the Manosphere.
38-year-old Andrew Tate's opinions are vile, violent, and very challenging.
Bang out the boom in her face and grip her up by the neck. What's up, bitch?
But far from being repulsed, his millions of followers, mostly made up of adolescent boys and young men, revere him as a hero.
Andrew Tate is, most of you guys know, high-profile internet personality whose brand is built on confidence and truth-telling framing. He is very frustrating. I don't like the guy. He fits the cult of personality dynamics because loyalty often attaches to him as a symbol, making criticism feel like persecution, and this encourages defensive enforcement and so forth. Like, he kind of built this larger-than-life character of his, right?
Not too differently from real-life cults, you usually have your narcissistic, charismatic leader feeding his devout audience some really dangerous ideologies, promising to fix their lives in one way or another.
I have at least partially escaped the Matrix. Everything I do is conscious. What you're supposed to do is not cry, because this is a test in mental fortitude.
When in reality, they're just exploiting them for their own needs. But because these leaders and their followers are not meeting up in some dark room, secluded from society, far away, but rather do everything that they're doing in a very public space, on the internet in front of millions to see.
If you don't want to make me a cup of coffee, that's perfectly fine. Pack a fucking bag.
I hope he lives forever. Their actions end up being dismissed as something that could never be cult-like.
How he got set up, he grew through viral clips.
I see myself as superior to females, and not in a negative way. Like, I'm not saying you can't train any girl, but I'm saying some blueprints are better than others.
All right, I'm going to do a really brief, quick rundown of Andrew, the beginning of his life, where he came from, and how he kind of got started as this manosphere influencer. In my opinion, cult leader. A lot of what I'm going to say here is my opinion, and let's jump in. Andrew Tate likes to frame his younger years as very traumatic and something that turned him into what he is now, and tries to use this as an excuse as to why he does what he does. And as others have pointed out, just because you were sad when you were a kid doesn't give you an excuse to do horrible things to women and other people. It's the same as saying, oh, I had a tough childhood and that's why I killed them, Your Honor. Not everyone who has a tough childhood grows up to be like this. You can't blame your childhood for how you treat other people in the world. I'm going to be popping in with my opinion all throughout this. His mother was from England, who met his father, who was an American, while he was in the Air Force, and he was stationed in the UK. They later moved to the US after he retired. His father became a grandmaster, chess grandmaster, and played this professionally for a living, and Andrew, he started to do this as well. His parents ended up getting a divorce. This led to him moving back to the UK with his mom, and he no longer had his dad or coach or anything for chess. He kind of lost that path. That's when he decided to become a kickboxer. He got his big break when there was a late pullout in a bout, and he had about 3 days notice, and he had to lose so much weight and whatever. So he got ready for the fight. Everything was fine, but he ended up losing the fight. The judges decided that something was wrong with it. They ended up redoing the fight. Then he won again, and then with him winning, he got the ISKA like heavyweight world champion for the first time. Kind of coasted on that being like his title's known thing for a while, and he had a few girlfriends in a few different countries, but there was no money in this. And then he started trying to think of a way that he could make some money. So him and his brother actually came up like a get rich scheme. Andrew wanted to create like a cam girl site.
And one day I woke up, and I literally just woke up. I looked at my bank. I just won a world title fight, but I hadn't fought in 6 months. By the time I paid all my back rent and paid my car payments, all that, I looked at my bank. I had like $3,000, $4,000 in there, and I'm like, I'm giving up my entire life, and I don't even know how I'm going to live. I need to get rich. So I said to my coach, look, I'm going to take a couple months off and I'm going to focus purely on money. I'm sitting with my brother and I'm like, how can we get rich? The only thing I had was, because I'd been fighting all around the world, I had these 6 girlfriends. Because you'd win the world title, you fuck a ring girl, she falls in love with you, you're the big millionaire in London, of course. She thinks you live in the balling life. You're in some tiny apartment with a door lock.
So he actually had 6 girlfriends at the time. They didn't know about each other. He ended up inviting them all to move to London for a job. Of the 6, 4 of them did agree. He convinced them that they were going to live this lavish lifestyle and earn a ton of money. When the 4 showed up, they didn't know about each other. So then they found out, then 2 of them left. So he started his cam girl business with 2 girls. He ended up developing a model where the girls would pretend to type on a keyboard, but it was unplugged. He was actually typing to the men.
And I'm sitting there typing, and I'd type 16, 17 hours a day for about 3 months. I'm just typing until the girls learn. And once the girls learned they could do it themselves, then I thought, I need some more chicks. And that was kind of the beginning of the cam empire.
There is an interview that Andrew Tate's brother did about this cam girl stuff, and he calls it a scam. This YouTuber, Pinely, he actually reads through the article quoting Andrew's brother about the cam girl stuff. So I'm going to include this clip as well.
It's going to get worse from here, but according to this article, his own brother referred to their cam girl website as a total scam, saying how the women on the website are given fake sob stories to try and manipulate the men that watch them into giving them a whole load of money, which is pretty cool. I mean, criminal. Some women will claim to have crippling university debt, a family member in need of private health care, or a dream of moving to the United Kingdom, sometimes even telling men that they want to meet them. This article quotes the Tate brother himself. This is what he has to say about their business. It's a total scam. The model just has their hands on a keyboard that isn't even plugged in. I have real professionals who are fluent in English behind the scenes getting men hooked, finding out their interests, the name of their dog. It's an operation of professionals who lured these men in.
And that's where he kind of built it from there. And as they grew, then they hired more girls. And there was about 75 women across 4 locations doing shows when their business really was in the thick of it. But from the beginning of the cam girl stuff, Tate actually wasn't this Manosphere online personality yet. Andrew would end up making a name for himself through a casino deal, which I'll get to in a second. But first, he was on Big Brother around 2016 or so, and he came on as this kickboxer. Like, that was sort of his, well-known thing that he was known for. He ended up, this video leaked of him. It was a DV video, and there's a couple of them, and I'm going to put some of their clips in here. So trigger warning. They are all blurred out, and just some of the things that he says about women. So that ended up being leaked. Then he got kicked off the Big Brother show because of that.
In 2016, when he was booted off the UK's version of Big Brother.
Due to events in the outside world, Andrew has had to leave the Big Brother house.
The reason? This disturbing video emerged of him striking a woman. But far from being cancelled, Tate, with help from his younger brother Tristan, used the negative publicity to begin promoting the idea of toxic masculinity, and more specifically, that a woman is a man's property.
If I have responsibility over her, then I must have a degree of authority. You can't be responsible for a dog if it doesn't obey you.
Where he actually got his online personality is he actually reached out to a casino owner that had franchises, and he convinced him to let him try and build up his casino, get him a bunch of business and everything like that. He ended up just running this casino really well, where he offered, the casino was next to a Starbucks. He offered fancy coffees to come to the casino, like a free coffee. So that convinced people to come in. But what ended up happening is he used the casino as a platform or as a stage, and he told people that he had all this money, he had bottle service, he had all these girls and everything. People could live his lavish lifestyle too, and this is what started his brand. So he didn't own the casinos, he didn't have this money, he was running them, and he was just using it to make it seem like he had all these things, all these fancy things.
There was a Starbucks 2 doors down. So a lot of people going out to Starbucks. It was like coffee. So I put up these massive signs saying free coffee. And I got us a barista, and I got us a big coffee machine, Starbucks level, the best possible coffee machine. So, and the point was, why would you go pay $5 for coffee? You can come get free coffee with me. Gamble your $5. You might get lucky.
And then from there, starting up his university, Hustlers University, where he teaches people how to hustle like him. They learn to become your own like PIMP. And then he starts pushing crypto, which he didn't actually make a ton of, like he made his money off of really the cam girls, yes. And then also selling his image with this casino deal thing that people didn't realize, like he didn't have that money. He didn't pay for that bottle service. Like this was, he just used that to make it seem like he was richer than he was. And there's the flaw in these courses and stuff that these Manosphere guys actually do. They are based off of the hard work that they put in, but they make it seem like it's a get-rich-quick thing. Most of the time, they try to convince you to do crypto or trade, where that isn't where this person made their money. This person made their money off of other, like, means. And actually, there's a clip from... There was recently a documentary about the Manosphere by Louis Theroux. I'll put a clip that he did an interview after about these like courses that all the Manosphere guys sell.
If you take my advice, I'll give you the cheat codes to life. And you will be rich like me. But the way they teach you to be rich is generally not the way they got rich, if they are rich. Because the other part of it is, it's not clear how much of it is even real.
I do recommend that you go and watch the Netflix documentary that he did. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And what he's saying here is how much is even real. He would ask these guys like, hey, do you own this place? And they're like, no, we rent it. And he's like, do you own these cars? No, I lease them. There's like this misconception that these people actually own all this stuff when they don't. As well, he's going to mention someone named HS. That was like the focus of the majority of his documentary. And essentially this guy, HS, he's a streamer and he's made most of his money off of streaming on like, I think Kick and Twitch and stuff like that. So that's what he's commenting towards with HS too coming up here, because I know some context will be lost here if you haven't watched the documentary. So I'll try to fill it in.
I mean, there's so much false content. There's so much misleading advertising, in my opinion. You know, the idea that, oh, if you want to be a multimillionaire, just do what I did and go on this FX trading platform. And you're thinking, actually, I'm pretty sure HS Tiki-Toki made his money by streaming for 10 hours a day, you know, and taking a cut of the products that he's selling, not by trading on FX. You know what I mean? There's a sort of a bait and switch going on. And then with Tate specifically, he came up kind of as an offshoot of the PUA community, the pickup artistry community. How you have to get a girlfriend and then she'll fall in love with you, and then you introduce her to camming, and then you take her money.
We will also dive a bit more into that Manosphere documentary. At the time when I first wrote the script for all this video and I was filming it, I didn't know about this documentary. And actually there's a bunch of feedback from women that came out after. And I'm going to end up adding a bunch of that to this video here. So these case studies were really seeing the sort of extreme sides of both, where the extreme sides of like the spiritual wellness industry with Teal Swan, and now we're getting into the Manosphere stuff, and this is the male dominated kind of personality cult. So that was just the background a bit of Andrew, so you understand where he came from and how he ended up where he did. Now we're actually going to discuss the signs and, in my opinion, proof that he's a cult leader, and other people have called him out as well. So I have a couple things to show you guys from some different YouTubers, creators, and also 60 Minutes did a big thing on him too. So we're going to be diving into that as well.
I went over some really long lists and papers about different kinds of traits and characteristics that cult leaders have, and I think that Andrew has like all of them. The cult's main selling point is to offer the follower a new perspective on life, a new kind of truth that will make everything make a lot more sense to them.
Do you ever look around you and just look at the world and feel like, kind of like we're in the Matrix, like there's something missing?
It's all preying on this feeling that something needs to be changed, something needs to be done, and oh, look at this. There's a guy coming to you, giving you exactly that.
The techniques that are used in this particular case. This is what personality cult machinery looks like in a creator context. It was myth making. Like, he was framed as this uniquely real and persecuted, honest person saying what other people won't say. Literally, like, this is the kind of stuff said about him.
So that is you saying that women are your property.
It's not about being property. It's about the fact that she belongs to him and the intimate parts of her body belong to him because they're in a relationship. And if she wants to sell those, he has a stake in those intimate parts of her body.
So it's reverse. Male star owes the woman.
I don't know, because I think the women belong to the man. I think the woman's given
that's
over.
inherently where you get called sexist.
There were things like pre-framing the narrative, where critics were dismissed as haters and brainwashed, or they were dismissed as like beta men, or like just the absolutely ridiculous stuff. But, you know, people fall for it.
Also, sometimes he just talks in his TikToks about like normal things, like, I don't know, inflation and explaining how the rich get richer. So these videos might catch the attention of someone, get them to think that he's like not that bad at all, and continue watching his other stuff.
Toxic masculinity and the manosphere is really building upon the insecurities of young men to build out their influence and their cults, essentially.
He talks a lot to men who have been cheated by their girlfriends.
I've had loads of guys come to me and they tell me their sob story by email. And they're like, what should I do? I'm like, leave her.
Dudes who feel like they struggle with finding the right relationship, or just men who feel like they can't even understand women.
I have people mess with me all the time. I'm fat and I can't get a girlfriend because I'm depressed. I'm like, no, pancake lover. You're depressed because you're fat.
And most young men face these issues with women, and that is what Andrew and the manosphere is preying upon.
An insecurity that I've heard and known about since I was a teenager, essentially, is that guys have when it comes to being the person to initiate, being the one to actually muster up the courage to go to a person that you like and tell them about that. We used to hang out all the time after school. Guess what? This girl, we're not friends anymore. My inaction resulted in the same thing that I was scared of.
And we can relate this back to the systems of influence inside normal cult dynamics.
So systems of influence are the more subtle manipulations of your emotions. You know, guilt, shame, fear, love.
He gets people to worship everything that he says because he keeps talking about how smart he is.
I don't make mistakes. Everything I do is conscious.
And Andrew's message has convinced a lot of men that they need him in their lives. That Andrew and his ideas, his belief system, will fix all of their problems.
The transcendent belief system is the overarching ideology. It gives you the answers to the past, the present, and future. So it's a new way for you to understand the world and your role in the world. And it's inclusive in that when you are part of that, you feel like you're a member of the elite. You're special. And those other people who aren't part of it, well, there's just something wrong with them.
Tate bluntly plays on that element quite a bit.
He falls with omnipresence as well. There was constant algorithmic clips, so it's unavoidable at times. Like, he's just always in the feed. And like any good cult, he also has religious undertones, surprisingly.
In Andrew Tate's Hustlers University, there's a section on the website called Tales of Wudan, where Andrew has essentially written like a whole ass fan fiction about himself.
Also important to point out, this is no longer on his website. This was when he was first getting started. This is like the Hustler 2.0 or 1.0. This is the stuff he had on the website at that time. But it's important to bring up because he kind of designed his whole brand, and he still does. Like, he has religious undertones, just he's better at hiding them now.
It is some of the nerdiest shit I've ever seen in my whole life. Good picture. In a previous life, I lived 5,000 human years atop Wudan Mountain. Everything about this reeks of religious elements. You've been walking blind, ignorant to the real truths of the world. And hey, guess who's there to release you from all of that? None other than Mr. Tate.
I am the guy trying to wake you up from slavery.
Now we take a look at his polished answer about religion, PR answer after he initially got arrested and stuff. This was his like little, I'm sorry, I'm not this type of person for real video, and he made promises and stuff. But now we get to hear how he sounds now that he can afford like a PR team.
I live with a very, very pure heart. I'm a religious man. I go to church, and anyone who follows me in detail knows I donate huge sums of money to the church. And as long as I knew the truth of my heart and God knew the truth of my heart, I wasn't interested in lies being purported.
So I'm not really sure which religion Andrew is referring to, but gambling is not permitted in all religions. In Christianity, for example, the very nature of gambling as a means of making money at the expense of others was seen as contradicting the Bible. The Roman Catholic Church takes a more liberal stance on gambling, and lucky strikers are not considered sinful. Orthodox Church agrees with the Catholic Church. The same goes with Islamic religion that recognizes only two types of deeds, haram and halal.
He has literally made a religious tale about himself.
Secret truth claims and bro marketing, like you want to be rich and successful and have women and this and that, and you got to be manly and you got to be an alpha bro. So his appeal mixed with wealth and status and identity, especially for audiences feeling uncertain or overlooked. So it tended to attract a lot of what some people would refer to as incels. For those unfamiliar, incel means involuntary celibate, essentially people that are struggling to have a relationship. It actually was started by a woman, not a man. Men took it over, of course, and turned it into this mess that it is now. The courses are a key aspect as they are treated like secret knowledge that you would get outside of his TikToks. It's like special secret knowledge for only the club that's, close to Andrew. And that's kind of how they're sold, which is a lot of cult information and growth and learning and raising yourself up the ladder. In a cult, it's common that there's a lot of courses and such too.
Well, look no further than Hustlers Academy 2.0, the only school that you can ever go to that will probably make you a bit more dumb. This is the moment you've been waiting for. This is where you get to give Andrew some good old cash. Lucky you.
Hustler University now has over 4,000 members, paying him $49 per month.
This is an older video. It's now Hustlers University 4.0, so the numbers have probably gone way up in the amount of people signed up, but there is a basic fee, which is like the $49 one, and then there's like the War Room, which is the VIP area, I guess, and you get like closer access to Andrew or something. And I've heard that's a few $1,000s a month at least. Now here is just a clip of 2.0 of the basic fee course of something that you would see in it.
They are still inside the matrix. These people have never been rich. They've never been to where you want to go. So how could they possibly know the way? I've climbed to the top of the mountain, so I can tell you the mountain path.
And this video, again, it's older and talks about the War Room as well.
His top-tier membership is the War Room, which now costs over $4,000 to be a part of. And this is considered his close network, how they're making millions of dollars, but also how to break free of the government matrix by having multiple passports, residences, and driver's licenses. He describes it like the Freemasons, but much cooler.
The War Room is for men who understand something is missing.
Something isn't right here, like there's something missing.
You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
The red pill movement and the matrix metaphor that they use, we're going to revisit in the Manosphere section after this Andrew section, so we're going to circle back to this because I have a few points I want to say about it.
The War Room is for men who will die without regret.
I know things were a little bit more lighthearted with the other person that I was showing some clips of, but now we're going to get into the serious stuff, and this is the things that make Andrew very dangerous and scary, and like he has convictions waiting, or like he hasn't been convicted yet, but there's like cases open. There's a bunch of stuff. A lot of it was covered in this 60 Minutes interview and film and this documentarian that I felt was pretty good, so we're going to take a look at it. Oh, and this 60 Minutes special and this documentary and everything, this was just aired. It was only about 7 months ago, so this is very up to date with a lot of the stuff, and I do have some updates regarding the criminal situations that the Tate brothers are finding themselves in as well, and we'll get to those.
The so-called king of toxic masculinity.
It bears so many hallmarks of a cult.
And
very scary.
So why do millions of young men believe him?
Year 11, I was looking for something to cling on to.
He became your role model.
Absolutely.
This filmmaker ended up following Andrew around for the next 5 years, documenting and getting an inside look at Andrew Tate, the Manosphere, toxic masculinity, the whole thing. He's got a very interesting perspectives and feedback that he gave for his interview and everything, and his work that he did on 60 Minutes.
Filmmaker Jamie Tarzan first met Andrew Tate in 2019 when he and journalist Matt Shea embarked on a documentary about Tate's life. Over the next 5 years, Jamie had unprecedented access to one of the world's most divisive figures.
That he can be incredibly charming. And I say this quite often to my friends who ask me, what is Andrew Tate like? I say, if you met him in the pub and you didn't know anything about him, he was just a stranger and he came over and spoke to you, you would end up thinking, that's a really great guy, because he has this incredible ability to mirror people and say the right thing. It's something that the women I spoke to who alleged groomed him touched upon, because they said, we're not idiots. We didn't just fall for this guy who came out saying, I'm a horrible man, I think you're all idiots, I'm going to enslave you. He charmed them, and he's very good at presenting himself as what you want him to be.
We will be hearing some statements from the women so you can understand a little bit about the love bombing and things like that, how he tricked them into it. And that's another reason why he gets away with some of the stuff he does too, is he'll smirk at the camera and things when he's saying all these awful things, and then he'll turn around and tell people that he's playing a character, or he's just joking, he's just doing that to make money, and then he acts like a different person, he puts on a mask. This is very common in my opinion, allegedly. Sociopaths do this a lot, but there are other people that are good at doing this too, different psychological disorders. So Andrew gets to attract the right audience with his toxic masculinity, but then he can turn around and say that he was just joking. It's very calculated. This documentarian followed him around for 5 years. He saw him when the cameras weren't running. He saw him in many different situations. And his findings are that Andrew truly believes this stuff. And this is not a joke. This is not an act.
Oh, no, I believe he believes it. I've spoken to women that knew Andrew Tate back in 2014, 2013, long before he was famous. He was a real sort of fringe kickboxer back when combat sports weren't really a big thing. And they all said he would say incredibly misogynistic things back then. Even back then, they said, one of them told me she vividly remembers a point his Facebook cover photo was an image of a man with his foot pressed down on a woman's head. And throughout my time with Andrew Tate, there were these recurring moments that kind of indicated, yes, he really does believe that women aren't as intelligent as men. Women shouldn't be able to vote. Women should be entirely devoted to their husbands in a sense that they're essentially their slaves. These are all things that Andrew Tate does believe. I think what's most interesting about him is he's managed to convince himself that holding those views is not misogynistic. It's just viewing men and women as different. It doesn't involve any hatred of women, which is obviously ridiculous.
And not enough people take this stuff seriously. Andrew Tate and people like him are very dangerous. And I think that it's an important point to get across that we need people to realize.
How dangerous do you think this man is?
I think he's incredibly dangerous, not just because of the severity of what he says, but also the scale of his reach. So there's this whole generation of young men who look at Andrew Tate and go, not only is misogyny something that's acceptable, but it's also a route to becoming rich and famous.
Now we circle back into the cult of personality. There are a couple YouTubers that 60 Minutes actually interviewed here, which I'm going to show you, and they talk about the cult dynamics of it all. And just to preface as well, they have been doing exposés on Andrew on YouTube, and Andrew's actually got lawsuits against them. So he's scared of what they are saying because they are pulling young men out of the cult. And they do talk about this a bunch in the interview. I will link the interview as well.
I think Andrew Tate is a unique evil in the world, and he's influencing a generation of younger men. That is a unique evil, I think.
I started looking at some videos and realising that they were targeting kids as young as 11 and 12 years old and recruiting them into what I ended up working out and believing was a cult environment.
And if we bring it back to a bunch of the stuff that we've discussed, there's actually a good example of loyalty signaling within Andrew's community. And with loyalty signaling, support became something, or is something, that people perform publicly. People defended him. They repeat slogans. They make fun of people who question him because there was social reward amongst their community. And big one, audience enforcement. His community does a lot of dogpiling, harassment, different things like that.
Exposing Andrew Tate comes at a cost. Have you personally been threatened?
Oh, yes. Yes.
What are they saying?
that they're going to find me, they're going to kill me, they're going to, yeah.
You've had death threats?
Absolutely, yeah.
When people start criticizing him, then people are seeing it as threatening the system or threatening men or threatening culture of men and different things like that. One of the big ones too is like when Tate was arrested, that's when his issues were highlighted by outsiders more. But the Manosphere at this point it's grown already, and there was a lot of attacking going on with it.
Beneath the flashy social media facade, there are now serious allegations of assault and rape, and criminal investigations into alleged human trafficking spanning several countries.
Just to walk it back for a second, let's take a look at some old clips of him discussing why he went to Romania, why he was there, and sort of setting up this empire and his reasonings. And these interview clips, in my opinion, really aged like sour milk.
To move to Romania, let's listen to him describe why he decided to make this change in his life.
People say, why did you live in Romania? And I explain my 5 reasons. One of them is the Me Too era.
He's going to be repeating the word for SA a lot here. It's bleeped out, but he goes on to pretty much say that he is a racist, in my opinion, based on his own words, which we're going to take a look at right now. He moved to Romania so that he could get away with it.
If you're going to go to the police and say, you back in 1988, they're going to say we should have done something about it then. They go, oh, well, you're a rapist. I say, no, I'm not fucking racist. But I like the idea of being able to just say, to do what I want. I like being free.
That's definitely the type of guy you should invite on your podcast. Yeah, that's definitely the kind of dude I want to have a fun little conversation with. If this creepy and disgusting obsession that he has over rape laws is not enough of a self-report, then this probably is. In 2017, in the midst of all the Harvey Weinstein stuff, where the things that he has done were very much out there in the public eye already, he had this to say: in those types of situations, pretending women are blameless and men shouldn't is stupid.
And when he and his brother got arrested, that's when he started releasing some stuff trying to kind of be a martyr for the cause.
I do have a problem with false criminal accusations when I do not have a criminal record. And I have never had a criminal record in any country on the planet. I do have a problem with this.
I agree that a person is innocent until proven guilty, but he was charged with criminal activities such as human trafficking. And the fact that he was under investigation is true, but he was not arrested because there was not enough evidence. And that's why he is right here.
Now, for the sake of Andrew's victims, whether it's the girls that he hurt or the young men that he is influencing to think that this is okay behavior, we're going to dive a little bit more into what's going on with this case. We're going to hear from some of his victims as well, some of the female victims that have had issues with him and have some lawsuits and other things pending with him as well. And this is where things are going to get more intense with some of the stories that you're going to hear.
There are multiple lawsuits and criminal investigations running across the UK, US and Romania, some of which allege widespread abuse and human trafficking at the hands of Andrew and Tristan Tate.
They're very classic traffickers, in my opinion. I don't think they're unusual in their methods and what they did and how they did it. I think the only real thing that's unusual about them is that they bragged about it so much.
Danny Pinter is an attorney with the United States National Center on Sexual Exploitation. In 2022, her client, known as Jane Doe, flew to Romania, thinking she'd be travelling around Europe with her boyfriend, Tristan Tate. Instead, she found herself in the middle of an alleged trafficking operation. When she got to Romania, what happened?
When she got there, she was quickly moved into a house with other women who appeared to all be working in webcam, perform on webcam for many hours at a time, late into the night. They didn't seem happy in her opinion. They didn't seem healthy in her opinion. They all seemed to be in romantic relationships with the brothers, which seemed odd. And there was this restriction of movement of all the women.
And if history has taught us anything, and you can take a look at the past video too that we did on cults, often cults do end up doing this as a business or for their own personal sick pleasures. Again, limiting movement, things like that. This is typical cult behavior. It's also behavior to control someone in a trafficking situation as well.
Jane Doe raised the alarm and police raided the Tate compound. The brothers were taken into custody and eventually charged with trafficking and other offences. But frustratingly, justice moves slowly in Romania. No one knows when or if the case will go to trial.
And again, by Andrew's own admission years back, that is why he moved this whole operation to Romania.
I think for some of his key fans, there's probably nothing that you can do. Even a successful criminal conviction would just have them believing that he's been falsely imprisoned. And
in my last video, when we were discussing some fundamentalist cults that in the past, that is what they do. The leader will say that they are being falsely imprisoned. And then essentially he goes on to explain here, the documentarian, that because it takes so long to see justice, especially in places like Romania, it gives Andrew time to build up a narrative and make himself out to be the victim.
Cases to take a long period of time, but what it allows Andrew Tate to do is sow this idea that it's a rubbish case, right? If they had an argument to make, I'd be in prison already, but I'm not. That's what he always says. So it really allows him to create himself as a kind of martyr if things don't go his way.
The Tates say they're innocent of all allegations, and remarkably, that they're in fact the victims of women making false claims. Women like Jane Doe, who's being sued for defamation by the Tates, despite never speaking with the media.
Hi, guys.
She's been harassed. She's facing a smear campaign. She's been living in hiding for years, and she's defending against these lawsuits. And she could have crumbled, which I think they thought she would, but she isn't.
So if any of you have been following this story, like Andrew's been traveling all over the world too. Things have, like, charges were dropped, then they were started again. It's happened in the UK, I believe, and I think Romania, they've dropped one point and they started up again. And in the States, of course, he's welcomed with open arms. He's a mega supporter, whatever. I think I have an article or something. I'll put a screenshot of what the president said about him. But I didn't know about this, but Andrew's been trying to get into Dubai during this war, and it's a little odd. And this person, Therese, very good channel, by the way, I do recommend her, especially for women, go check her out. She actually put some stuff together that he might be trying to go to Dubai to avoid getting actually convicted in places. It's a theory, it's not proven, because yes, charges were dropped, but then they were started back up again, which means like new evidence and stuff was found. So I think that he's not escaping the charges like he hoped he would. I'm going to play you this just because I found it interesting. It seems like a strategy that he's doing, and this is, again, very, very recent. So just so you have an update on the case and you understand what's going on with the law aspect of it. And then we're going to get into a story of an ex of his in the United States that was attacked and the lawsuit that she has going as well. Also, I'm horrible with names. It might be pronounced Teresa or Therese.
Here's a clip from March 6, 2026 from a YouTube creator named Trapmore Ross. Tate is apparently trying to get back into Dubai and was detained again a few days ago.
Because I have 34 investment properties in Dubai. I have children in Dubai. I have family in Dubai. And I've not evacuated anyone. Because I'm betting with my own flesh and blood that in 2 days, this crap will be gone. So now, time to cross the border, huh?
And side question, if he's so innocent, why is he fleeing to Dubai? Why is he risking arrest, risking danger during a war to go to Dubai? Could it be because the UAE has no extradition treaty with Romania? I'd be willing to bet that whatever punishment awaits you in the UK is likely better than the punishment that awaits you in Romania. So, I don't know, that could have something to do with it. He claims he has family there that needs to protect, but you would think that if you have family in a country that is at risk for people being injured from war, you would get the family out to Romania where you are there safe. Why do you need to go there?
It's a bit of a mess because it's multiple countries, but let's narrow down and talk about specific victims. A lot of ex-girlfriends and women in his life are now coming forward with their stories of how he physically hurt them and psychologically hurt them as well.
Did I say the word listen? Did I say the word listen? I didn't say the word listen. Did I say listen? Did I say listen?
Do you ever have to apologize, make amends to women for things you've done or said?
No, because I will never apologize because I don't make mistakes.
Model Bree Stern accusing Tate of assaulting and choking her.
I was terrified that I might die.
Early messages between Tate and Stern appear to show him smothering her with love.
He told me everything on the internet was just a facade.
Whether it's cults, toxic relationships, they all kind of function the same way. First, he was love bombing her, and then it became more aggressive over time.
Text messages between Bree and Andrew show the alleged violent nature of their relationship.
You need to be hit.
Why? I don't like it. What did I do?
You deserve it. Because I want to beat the out of you. You will give me a child this year.
Why do you want to beat me? It's 12:30 a.m. I'm in the room. I sleep soon.
What's the point in having you if I don't beat you and impregnate you? You should be thankful.
In another text message, Tate alleges that he enjoys beating Bree because he found it relaxing. I mean, Nasty doesn't even begin to cover something like that. Bree is the first woman to publicly identify herself as an alleged victim of Andrew Tate. But she's not the only one making accusations.
When I'd seen him again in 2013, I thought, oh, all these rumours about him may be false because he's actually been really lovely. We started to make out on the bed. Out of the blue, he literally just stopped what he was doing and just laid back. He said, I'm just contemplating whether I should you or not. Within an instant, he changed. He just jumped straight on top of me, grabbed my throat, started suffocating me, strangling me. The more I didn't want to, it made him so much more aggressive to the point where he was pinning me down, hurting me. The things he was saying to me, he was like, who do you belong to? Who do you belong to? And the more I couldn't say it, the more he'd hurt me. So I couldn't see an escape. And at that point, I just gave up. I just gave up. And then when it stopped, he went to the bathroom and acted as if it was normal. So I'm like, maybe I did. Did I want it? Did I not? I definitely said to him, please don't, and he told me, shut the fuck up. Definitely got strangled. I definitely didn't want it. Did he think I wanted it? When you look back, the psychological warfare you have with yourself is like you couldn't even imagine. You wouldn't know, you wouldn't understand it unless you've been through it.
Amelia's method of coping with the alleged was to pretend to herself that it was a normal relationship.
I've also been through SA as well, and this is what happens. We try to rationalize it, reason it, because the support just isn't there for when we do try to seek justice.
It wasn't consensual because he knew I didn't want it, which he confirms in multiple voice messages and texts to me.
Am I a bad person? Because the more you didn't like it, the more I enjoyed it. I loved how much you hated it. Turned me on. Are you seriously so offended I strangled you a little bit? You didn't pass out.
Due to fears of harassment from his fan base, she is also withholding her real name.
We were just sitting on the bed and Andrew punched me in my arm. I went to the bathroom and cried. It really, really hurt to have someone just hit me in the arm for no reason. I was very confused. Sorry. Sorry, I don't want to cry.
It's okay.
He used to strangle us as well. There was another time when he came into the bedroom, me and the other girl, we would sleep in the same bed with Andrew, but at this time the girl had a partner, so she was not interested in Andrew at all. And I had gone to the shower, I came back and I noticed he was, I saw him raping her. And I went to the police shortly after that. Nothing was done really. She went to the police and then that's when they arrested him and took him into custody for like 2 days. It kind of just got left. I would send emails asking them to update. I'd hear nothing back.
When we reached out to Hertfordshire police about this, they had this to say. We acknowledge that there were some delays to the investigation. This was addressed at the time and apologies were made.
She asked us not to use her real name or to show her full face because she says she fears retribution from Tate's fans.
He was fairly charming. We got on quite well.
So the second time I saw him, he was working, I think he was working as a doorman in the nightclub, and he came to mine after a shift. And that was when the incident happened. So we were having sex, and he strangled me until I passed out. And then when I came back around, he was still having sex with me while I'd been passed out. So yeah, quite scared. There was no consent me telling him to do it or saying it was fine. He just kind of did it. He sort of kept saying things like, "Oh, I own you, you're mine," kind of quite possessive things. He was quite aggressive and kept kind of holding me against the wall by my neck and saying that he was going to kill me. And then he left and I never saw him again.
She says she was in shock and confused about what happened and decided not to go to the police at the time.
At the time, I kind of just thought it was a funny story, which is weird to say, because I didn't really have any kind of education on consent and kind of what that looked like.
So on the one channel that I pulled a bunch of the videos from, that they had different interviews from different organizations like BBC and such that we just watched. They actually linked to this fundraiser where they are working on a case to go after Andrew, and it looks like they are updating it. Last update was February this year, so I think that it's a valid fundraiser, and I'll make sure that I link it as well below. Now, this next video provides a moving visual of how underreported and underprosecuted cases of SAR.
Can you please stand if you know of someone who has experienced assault, whether it be a friend, a family member, coworker, or even yourself? Take a look around. Now, the second question I have for you. If you know that that person reported their assault, please stay standing. If to your knowledge they did not report their assault, you please quietly sit down. Third and final question for those of you still standing. If the perpetrator received any kind of punishment or justice, will you please stay standing? If to your knowledge they did not, will you please quietly sit down? Thank you.
The Me Too movement has a website here, and there's a bunch of resources, so I do suggest checking that out if you are in need of any help. Now let's move further into the fallout of all this. Let's discuss the manosphere as a whole outside of one person. It's more than just Andrew Tate. Consequences from this is that there's a lot of young men out there who their worldview is just totally skewed. It's probably never going to recover. They're still in this sort of cult mentality with him.
He tells these kids how weak and pathetic they are, and then the only solution to this is to give Andrew Tate $50 a month, buy his crypto, continue giving him more money. They'll get lots of women, they will drive a Bugatti. So that's where all the flashy videos of Tate bragging about his wealth and women and how great he is comes into it, because he ties that into his messaging towards these kids.
Tate's vile thinking has indoctrinated so many boys worldwide, it even became the plot of hit Netflix drama Adolescence, where a boy is driven to murder a girl because of toxic masculine culture.
No, I don't know what that is. What is it?
It's the involuntary celibate stuff. It's the Andrew Tate shite.
So a personality like Tate acts as a compression point. He makes the worldview feel simple and emotionally charged. A cult personality, it can create an ecosystem. Even if the figure fades, the movement can keep running because the ideology becomes portable. And it's spread through a lot. There's a lot of different copycat creators. There's different so many bro podcasts, all sorts of private communities teaching you how to be an alpha bro. There's even alpha bro getaways as well. well, that in itself has become a leaderless cult. Similar to a leaderless ideology, however, the people in it tend to seek out a leader who's saying the things that they'd like to hear. So the idea of red pills started as a matrix metaphor for waking up.
It's to give the follower an ultimate solution to life.
I get called Morpheus all the time in my DMs because I'm trying to wake people up. If the Matrix is real and you are watching this video, I am Morpheus. I am the guy trying to wake you up.
Morpheus, like an actual spiritual leader and mentor to Neo, the main character of the Matrix.
Then it got absorbed into the broader Manosphere, which is an online ecosystem, like I said, of creators and communities around masculinity, dating, power narratives, trad husbands, trad wives, alpha bros, blah, 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 blah. The funny thing is, these people have co-opted the Matrix red pill stuff, and they don't realize that story was written as like a simile or allegory, whatever, of the people who wrote it were trans, and they felt that this explained or described how they felt in the world, that something wasn't quite right. There was always something a little off. And then once they realize they're trans and then they transition, now suddenly they're living their real truth, their real life, what the reality really is. That is the Matrix is based on that. And these people have co-opted this. One, it sucks that they co-opted it. But two, they especially hate people that are LGBTQIA. And it's like, but the whole story was what the story was about, was the struggle that these people feel. And so I think it's crazy that they are so adamant about that and have so much hate towards it and don't realize that they're using this symbol that doesn't at all represent what they're talking about.
The red pill is a cult. The origins of the Manosphere are murky and seem to stretch back to at least the 1970s, when pickup artists wrote books and made videos about how to score tons of groovy chicks.
Hi, I'm Michael Jeffries. So let's watch now and see as they flirt with magic.
Okay, yeah, I forgot that I found this video. It's actually very concise. He goes into a lot more detail about the verbiage and all the other techniques and everything that the red pill community uses to draw people in and keep them in. I'm going to put a bunch of clips from this video, but I'm not going to play the whole thing. I 100% recommend that you go check out the full video. He's got a whole series on this actually, and it's very well researched and very well done.
Fast forward to 2012, which is when the Red Pill subreddit was founded by Reddit user PK Atheist, who was later revealed to be New Hampshire Republican State Representative Robert Fisher. The Red Pill quickly grew to become the unholy nexus of the Manosphere, giving angry men a central place to come together and develop their latent misogyny and toxic masculinity into a full-fledged ideology that preaches hatred of women. The strategies and tactics used by the Red Pill community are very similar to the methods used by cults, extremist religious groups, and white supremacist organizations. Cult recruiters tend to skulk around places where people go when they're down and out. This makes the internet a perfect recruiting ground for cult-like groups like the Red Pill, especially sites like Reddit and YouTube, which are full of sad, lonely men. Red Pillers try very hard to present their ideology as benign, especially in public-facing communications like this excerpt from an interview with the Red Pill moderator. We're accused of misogyny almost daily. I won't deny that the language is colorful and there's a lot of emotion expressed by the men on the forum, but before the Red Pill, there wasn't really a way for these guys to express their feelings.
Now, I would like to feature some of the victims of these movements and these cults, the young men who get caught up in it, because yes, there's a lot of victims that are women, and we're going to circle back to that, but there are victims that are men as part of this because they bring them in when they're very young and they don't realize and can't tell that this isn't a healthy environment to be in.
When he was a teenager in Melbourne, like millions of other boys around the world, Leeson Timms fell for the lies and the venom of social media star Andrew Tate.
For me, it was year 11. COVID started, forced to kind of stop doing the things that I love doing and not being able to see the people in my life, and became chronically online, spent hours on hours every single day. It started off with this man who was buff and tall and had the success and the things that, every teenage boy would want. I really felt tied to him because I was like, oh, finally someone I can look up to with a way of being, a way that I can be as a man, kind of in a way that doesn't exist anymore.
They're just not going to snap out of it until they realize that what they're asking for is just not going to happen in today's day.
I'd love to have a nice car one day. I hope I have an amazing wife one day. They're great things to look up to, but where's the people showing us the distinction between the good and the bad?
These days, Leeson's embarrassed that he was sucked into Tate's world of misogyny, but he wants to give others an insight into how easy it was for Tate to infect him with outdated views about the power men have over women.
I think it made me think I was untouchable and I couldn't make a mistake, and that I was like perfect, and the women in the world will kind of just like work around my way of being.
When I was 17, I fell down the red pill pipeline and I managed to get myself out about 5 years later. They would say that society is gynocentric, which means that society caters to women. I would say at 17, I was socially awkward, very introverted. I felt I was ugly in high school. So I went on YouTube and looked up tips regarding dating and women. It eventually led me down this deep, dark hole. It was able to kind of take the weight of blame off of myself. Like, actually, women are the ones in control. You're actually the victim in this situation. It's a very appealing thing to be the victim. I didn't view it as like, I've got to put them down type of thing. Like, it was saying that, hey, we understand why you feel bad. If you just learn what we have to give you, you'll be the one winning here soon. Before you know it, you're commenting, you're reading more, but at the same time, you're distrustful of the women around you. You're distrustful of people around you because you think they don't know what you know. It just degrades your own mental health. You start, without even realizing it, isolating yourself. I first started questioning my beliefs when I went through a breakup. Me and a friend of mine, we went to a cabin party. I started crying in front of one of the girls who I liked there. This girl responded rather with like shame and disgust that the red pill told me that they would react. She was actually like really kind about it. And that kind of made me think, what if I'm wrong? The reason I say it's compared to a cult, they don't like outsiders. They don't like outside thought. There was a lot of rage. I have a mom. I have women friends. I don't want to take away their rights. And then over time, they got really disgusting. I don't feel comfortable saying some of the other stuff I saw. Just vile, misogynistic comments. I'm on ex-red pill forums to help other people out like I would have helped me out. Helping others too is kind of maybe a way of like rectifying it. Something I wish that someone would told me when I was in the red pill. Not everyone who tells you that you're right is your friend. I feel like content creators in the red pill, they don't believe sincerely what they say and they're only saying it to get money. Community is the solution for this. Isolation is what's leading people down these rabbit holes.
All right, now for the random add-on that I didn't really plan, I'm going to play you the trailer of the Netflix documentary, and then we'll get into some more stuff from there. So Throw has copyrighted everything with the documentary. I can't even show the trailer. So I'm going to try to edit it. It may look funny, may only get audio. We'll see what we can do. If all else, I mean, you can take a look at the trailer. It's up on YouTube, but we'll do our best here.
I'd start my day off working out.
Who are you talking to?
What, do I not talk to them? Talk to you.
We're not on social media now. What would you say is the message?
I coach boys how to make money, how to be outside the system, how to be proper guys.
I was entering the Manosphere, a wild frontier of streamers whose behavior is reshaping the culture.
I'm doing it for money. I don't care about
the morality of it.
I'm not living for other people. I'm living for myself.
We don't cross into each other's lane.
Stings, huh? You seem upset by it. You seem upset by it. Do you consider yourself a misogynist?
I love women and I actually understand them.
You think you know better than they do?
They want a guy that can lead them and dominate them.
I'm raw, I'm not a puppet, I'm not controlled.
The interesting thing with this documentary, not really interesting, I guess, the flaw with this documentary is he spent all his time interviewing these men. He tried to speak to some of the women, but, you know, they're in a very controlled environment. But he never talked to any other women or therapists or anyone that works maybe in social work or something who has dealt with the fallout of these relationships that these women get stuck in. Plus also, I mean, he didn't talk to anyone who is a specialist in the trafficking situation. There's lawyers, there's different people that he could have talked to. That is the one drawback of this documentary that he really dropped the ball on. So we don't get a woman's perspective during this whole thing. It's all a male's perspective, which is good to have and understand, but I think that you also need to show the women's side of it because men are so blinded or poisoned in their mind from this community that they don't understand that women aren't what they think they are. So So, okay, we're going to start off first. I'm going to play you a bit of a TikTok from this woman. She actually works in DV. She's works in a center. I believe she's a social worker or a therapist, something like that. Let's listen to her feedback about the documentary. Then we're going to get back into Teresa's channel. I really like her stuff, to be honest. I really like her channel. We're going to take a look at some things that she had to say, because there's a lot that she says that's very good points. And yes, I could just reiterate all these things, but I feel like it's better for you guys to experience these creators versus me just taking what they say and making my own script out of it and essentially paraphrasing it. So I like hearing the feedback of other women, especially women that work in different fields. Okay, let's get into some of this feedback.
My name is Haley. I'm an educator in domestic violence. Follow along if critical thinking is your jam. First thing that wasn't said is that the central ideology is that women cannot be trusted, therefore need to be controlled. Sleuth model recognizes that abuse is driven by entitlement and control, desire to have power over another person. This is exactly why this ideology becomes abusive behavior, because the ideology itself is abusive. Heaven forbid a woman have autonomy or refuse to be controlled, because in their minds, women are only useful as far as their body is available to them.
Anyone who follows my channel should know by now that I am more of a feminist, and of course I do stick up for women quite a bit, so you shouldn't be surprised that I do like this creator. She's gonna get into some stuff regarding Darvo, and I know some of you probably have heard of it, some of you may not have heard of it, but I think it's actually very interesting as she does apply it to this documentary. So I do want to show you some of the stuff that she talks about here, as I do think it's a really good opportunity for everyone to learn from. I'm going to start with the viral clip that they've been using in their advertising, but a lot of people have been sharing. This is from the documentary.
Lewis is speaking with Manosphere content creator Harrison Sullivan, otherwise known as HS. The conversation is tense, but controlled. But then the tone shifts. Lewis brings up HS's criminal charges that he has pending.
You know what? I get Jimmy Savile energy from some of the Manosphere figures. Jimmy Savile used to refer to women. HS seemed to have changed tactics to put me on the back foot.
Can I ask you a question? Are Israel committing genocide? You're a puppet. You can't say what you want to say.
You want to think about what...
You're a puppet.
My opinion...
A puppet the same way you are for Savile. Puppet, mate.
Last year.
No, we're filming for a YouTube video. The thing is with me, I don't have to edit. I don't do this bullshit editing that you guys do, where this wouldn't be in the show. I'm raw. I'm not a puppet. I'm not controlled. No one's my daddy. Savile's your daddy. The Jew's your daddy. You know it.
While HS doesn't shout, you can tell he's angry. His voice sharpens, his posture changes. The subject is no longer his pending criminal charges. The subject is Lewis, the guy making the documentary, the guy who's asking the questions. HS brings up Jimmy Savile. His mother steps in and accuses Lewis of exploiting her son for profit. Now he's talking about Gaza. Now he's talking about Jews controlling the media. And then he turns away from Lewis and the documentary crew entirely and starts speaking directly into his live stream camera.
This is why I say what I believe, and I don't need to edit anything, ever.
What you just watched is a technique that's been studied since 1997. It has a clinical name because they all do the same thing. It's not a communication style. It's an abuse tactic. And it is very common among Manosphere creators and misogynists generally, because at their core, men in the Manosphere are fundamentally abusive men. And Louis Theroux and his crew caught it on camera.
And this is Darvo, which she's going to dive into more about it, the history of it, who kind of coined the term, invented it, discovered it, and so forth. So I found this very informative.
The clinical term for what HS did in that clip is DARVO. It stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim and Offender. The concept was coined by Jennifer Freyd, a professor of psychology at the University of Oregon, in a 1997 peer-reviewed paper entitled Violations of Power, Adaptive Blindness, and Betrayal Trauma Theory, published in the Journal of Feminism and Psychology. Freyd developed the framework while studying how sexual offenders respond when they're confronted with accusations, when they're held accountable, and that they all did the same thing. They all responded in the same way, and she called it DARVO. When someone with power is held accountable for their harmful behavior, they follow this predictable sequence. First, they deny the accusation. Then they attack the person raising the issue. And then finally, they reverse the narrative entirely, presenting themselves as the victim. and the accuser as the offender. That's the sequence every time. The viral clip from this documentary isn't Lewis's framing, it's the confrontation. It's the scene where Sullivan performs victimhood for his audience, where he hijacks the narrative of the very documentary that was supposed to scrutinize him. That's Darvo applied to the medium itself.
Now, in some of the clips that we've already looked at, you would have noticed that Andrew has been applying Darvo, but let's take a look at this clip. And now that you know about Darvo, you'll be able to clearly see what's going on here.
And for anybody here who wants to do honest journalism, you need to ask yourselves why there is this witch hunt, why the Matrix is so desperate to try and convince the world I'm a bad person and put me in jail when I've clearly done nothing wrong. It's been 3 solid years. They can't even find enough evidence to take me to trial.
Andrew Tate, charged with human trafficking and what's his response? Deny the charges. The Matrix is after me. Attack the institutions. Journalists are corrupt. Reverse. He's being persecuted for living his dreams or whatever. Textbook Darvo, industrial scale. That video is from March 24th, 2025. These men operate like abusive men because they are abusive men. Tricking women into falling in love with you, then taking their passports and forcing them to do sex work. Manipulating a woman into cleaning your house, waiting on you hand and foot while you go out and sleep with whoever you want, but she does not have that same freedom in the relationship. Again, Darvo was not developed to describe podcasters and live streamers. It was developed to describe offenders and the perpetrators of intimate partner violence. The fact that it maps so perfectly onto those guys should tell you everything you need to know about what this movement actually is.
And then she sort of ends the video explaining that the person who came up with the term Darvo, the person who did the research on it, she did find in her studies that once we become aware of what Darvo is, we can recognize it very easily out in the world, and we tend to not fall for it once we are made aware of it.
What's happening in the Manosphere isn't just internet drama. It's a movement. It's a radicalization pipeline, and it's shaping everything from dating culture to domestic violence rates to political extremism.
And for those of you who are out there saying, not all men, just some men, I have a special message at the end of this video after all the members' shoutouts. I wanted to keep it separate. To wrap all this up, as I mentioned before, I wanted to show a positive example of these ideologies where they didn't turn into a cult. So let's discuss some examples. So when we just look at the cult personality, the ideology itself, it starts with finding a person who represents change or something in the world that's good or something that can help us, and they inspire us and create history and just do good things in the end. That's at least for the ones that obviously don't turn into cults. Some good examples of this might be like humanitarian leaders like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, even Abraham Lincoln, Nelson Mandela, Einstein, Susan B. Anthony. Yes, some of these people may have their own different issues. Even like you could even make a case for John F. Kennedy, because Kennedy's made really big strides in mental health support and actual like treatment and everything too. Those are the type of people where I would say is the more positive outcome of this kind of ideology. These people did not take advantage of their position and create a cult and turn evil. They were just inspirational leaders and people who helped humanity. They were in one of the next videos in our series. We're actually going to be discussing when ideology outgrows the leader and it becomes a group belief system, the leaderless cult. And when we get to that video, we can compare it to this as social media and the algorithm really plays a role in developing these things and growing out ideologies, good and bad. Our follow-up to this one is Ashley Gillard. I did an original video on Ashley Gillard, and that was about a 3-hour deep dive into the whole story about what's going on and into the story of the Idaho 4 murders as well. And so the video I'm going to release at the same time, it'll be connected to this one, is Ashley Gillard, because it's an example of a cult of personality when we get into the spiritual side of things. Ashley is an example of a psychic, and everyone was believing her and then started going after this professor professor started harassing her because they thought that she was a killer because a psychic on TikTok said it. It's an interesting example of how people go so out of control when they attach themselves to a personality. So anyway, that is going to be the video that's available now after this one. And it is just sort of like an update on Ashley and kind of looking at her crash out, looking at the lawsuit. Definitely go check that out. But if you don't know anything about Ashley Giller, go see the video that I made first before all of this happened. Next week, we're going to take a look at the next cult types. I have secular cults, which is like our political cults. And then I'm going to be moving into the cultic milieu, which is very fascinating. And it's like a choose your own adventure kind of cult type, but it links back into the conspiracy theory communities and into the spiritualism communities, and they're kind of like combined now. And then we're going to be discussing the UFO conspiratorial QAnon community as well, which I'm going to be discussing with Susan Gerbic in an interview I did with her. This UFO community believes that she's like a CIA asset or something like that. Like, she's not. It's Wikipedia, UFO community, and Epstein files. It's very odd when I list the topics, but they all link together. Before you click off this video, don't forget, I do have an added bonus at the end after my member thank yous. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hype, comment, please comment on the videos, because that's going to help the most, or the algorithm changes as we head off too. Let's not forget to thank all the members and patrons. All your support means the world, and it really does help the channel out. I do appreciate you guys sticking around for me, and yeah, it means a lot. Thank you guys so much.
When we don't make a point to say, not all men, we're accused of attacking or hating men. I'm going to explain to you right here and now why that is not true. We are confronting a system. It's not about individual men. It's about the system that shapes them. Masculinity, as it's currently constructed, teaches men and boys that vulnerability is weakness, control is strength, and that power must be performed, even when it causes harm. The problem isn't men. The problem is masculinity, how patriarchy defines and enforces it. There is no difference between traditional masculinity and toxic masculinity. They are the same thing. We can't talk about the global epidemic of violence against women and girls without addressing this system. We can't let our fear of offending men stop us from naming the root cause, because men's feelings are not more important than our lives.
I will talk to you guys later. Have a good rest of your night. Backhead.